Hi. Good morning, Sangeet. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir. Praveen, hi.
Awesome.
Hi,
Awesome.
Prakash.
Awesome. Great.
Hi.
So all audio is working right now. This becomes more like a podcast than a webcast.
Yes.
Yeah. So Praveen, you can take over. We have an expert real estate consultant, Mr. Praveen Makhija, who's been in this business of real estate for now more than 25 years. This is a power talk show where we invite guests as experts to share their insights, their knowledge, and the expertise. Today's topic is get your papers right, and Praveen will be conversing with Prakash. Prakash is a high court advocate.
Thank you, Sangeet. Thank you so much for this lovely introduction. And let me take it up from here. So good morning and welcome, everybody. Welcome to this Power Talk Show. My name is Praveen Makhija, and I'm a second-generation realtor based in Mumbai. Having been in the field for over 30 years, I can confidently say that real estate is in my blood. Okay, so our topic for today is get your papers right. Yes, legal due diligence for buying and selling your property in 2020. Well, real estate has been in the news again, and for good reasons this time. There has been never a better time to buy your dream home. With the current lucrative pricing, attractive payment terms being offered by various builders and developers, or that matter, the all-time rates, low interest rates on home loans, currently at a mere 7%, and on top of it all, the stamp duty waiver offered by the Maharashtra government, the timing could not have been better. So buying real estate is not only about the right location, square footage, the views, finish, quality, and most importantly, but it's also about the ownership, the title of the property. Today, we have with us our very own advocate Prakash Rohira, who will help us throw some light on the due diligence required in real estate. Prakash Rohira is an advocate practicing in Bombay High Court. He has extensive knowledge of real estate transactions, project acquisitions, and related disputes. He practices and consults largely on various aspects of real estate transactions, litigations, and related crimes. So welcome to the show, Prakash.
Good morning, Pravinji. Thank you so much for the introduction.
Correct. So let's start with a very simple and a very basic question. Let's say, can you help us know how important is due diligence in real estate transactions today? Can you throw some light on this? How important is real estate transactions, especially considering that today, most of times when I'm interacting with my clients, sometimes you go through some of the papers and you see they do not have some chain of documents are missing, or they don't have stamp duty payment, or the documents are not registered. So how important is due diligence in real estate transactions today?
So, Pravinji, what happens is, you are, while you're buying a property, you're not only buying what you see is in front of you. You need to have the proper title, the proper authority to have and to hold that particular property.
Awesome.
For which reason we are supposed to understand the title that we hold and the right that we hold for having that property. Mm-hmm. Now, it is very widely known that while you're buying an immovable property, you're supposed to register your document. But this is all this is something that we have been understanding, and people have gained knowledge about this. Though the registration act is of 1908, people have only started gaining importance of this is in the late 90s.
The video is starting now, Prakash.
Video is starting.
Yes.
I solved that problem.
Sangeet, you're a rock star.
Yes. The feeling is so nice that you are able to solve the problem. But
yes.
Can you imagine, Praveen?
In this COVID times, this is the best you can get.
Yeah, seriously, this is going to be all a learning experience. And we have Prakash Rohira who's trying some tricks. Don't try this trick at home.
Yeah.
So well started, Praveen, by the way. Huh? Good start.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So let's do one thing. In the meanwhile, we can do some other tidbits about real estate. I especially...
all yours, Praveen.
Yeah. So I see one of the most important aspects of, due diligence, what I thought was, today, any property is worth about 2 crores, 3 crores, 5 crores. It's a huge price. Basically, you're paying all your lifetime savings, and not only the current savings, but even your future earnings when you're taking a home loan. And after investing your lifetime savings into it, it's very important that you do your due diligence and ensure that, the the property that you buy is correctly and owned by you, and even not only owned, but can be transferred further to your loved ones or to whomever you wish to, because that's the idea. Properties for perpetuity. That's the whole thing. One of the assets that you really want to hold and keep it. Sangeeta, let's maybe discuss about real estate.
Praveen, tell me how important
so today,
how important is that the consultant, real estate consultant, broker, realtor should know about the legal aspect of real estate in terms of during a transaction?
So you see, in fact, as a realtor, in fact, I see it's even more critical. Even before you confirm the transaction and you go the next step, you go to an important or a good lawyer like Prakash Rohera. But before that, obviously, it's a realtor who is involved. And at his point of level, be it when he's putting the property in the market before that, or at the time when you are concluding a transaction, before you even approach a good lawyer, that is the time when you can at least do some certain amount of screening at your level. So importance like, say, by just even going through the papers, ensuring that the original papers are with the owner, the chain of documents. For example, we always say, oh, my property, I have my document registered, it's there with me. But it's not only just your document. The title comes from the whole chain. So it's you purchase from A purchase from B, and then the first buyer or the seller, the developer. So it has to be the entire chain. That's the correct lineage that you should have, which would give you that that's how the title evolves. It's been given from A to B, B to C, and C to D. So it's very important, at some level, every broker should have this and should be able to do this. And not only one is about the chain, but also verify the original documents. Why do you verify the original documents? That is, ensure that the documents are with the owner. Hence, they're not mortgaged, they're not pledged, they're not in any private custody with someone else. So
very good.
That way, you do not have any hiccups in the in further transaction process. So very important to verify this. I do some very simple things like, even sometimes I kind of, obviously most of my clients are referral clients. That's how I did. Been in the business for 30 years and more. I've been very blessed, with being second generation, my dad being into real estate. So most of the people, so most of them are referral clients. But even if you do not know the client, the best way to ensure is you have some common links between them. Try and understand the background. Where do they come from? What is their current business? What are they into? So these tidbits. I learned a lot in networking. Networking is one way of getting sure about the credential about a person. So if you know some few people, some common connections, it's obviously not making it obvious. You can't go around and checking on someone, but in a subtle way, get to know about the person and his title, and then be confident about forwarding it. So due diligence in this time today, where you're investing your lifetime savings, it's very critical, I would say. It's you're putting someone else's hard-earned money and his whole life savings.
So we are talking about due diligence. We have Praveen Makhija and Prakash Rohera. Get your papers right, and we continue. Prakashji, you will have to turn your camera off.
So, like you said about stamp duty and registration. So, recently we had this amnesty scheme, and not many people were aware of it. And I would say it was a fantastic opportunity for a lot of people to get their papers right. I did recommend to a lot of my clients. What do you say? And what was, like, for example, registration, like you correctly mentioned and highlighted that it's a 1908 act, and it is mandatory all through, but people don't know. And I think that's something which we can still overlook prior to the 80s and 70s. Yes, those transactions, but it's important. I don't deny that. But how would you say what is the importance, and how does it affect your title?
See, though most of the acts that are involved in transferring of property, being it Section 17(1) of Registration Act or being a Transfer of Property Act, it clearly says, rather the Supreme Court has also on several occasions interpreted the necessity of a document to be stamped and registered to facilitate the transfer of the property to take place. So the reason we say कि agreement banaya, the agreement is made to transfer the property from the purchaser to the purchaser from the seller.
Correct.
Now, still date, we see there are documents coming up from the 60s and 70s and 80s. To my surprise, even in the 2000s, where people say, "Okay, agreement is not registered." The document is not registered, and the burden for proving the transaction to be proper, what as you would call it, to have a proper title, and ke like ke kaam chala liya, they're two very different things. So when you say proper title, what people did was they went under the amnesty scheme, they paid the stamp duty. You completed your liability for paying stamp duty to the government, correct? While paying stamp duty to the government puts a burden on you to prove that the possession of the property was with you when you provide any document for possession, whether it government document, like only a society letter will not do, like whether you have an electric connection in your name, or you have your ration card or any other document that was registered into, like to show that you were in possession for that. Because though we are sitting over in Mumbai, of course we encounter a lot of weird and fudged and forged documents, but this problem is more prevalent in tier 2, tier 3 cities, where people are not so technically sharp. And as I was discussing with you yesterday, like we very funnily mentioned about the movie Trishul, where Amitabh Bachchan was like Sanjeev Kumar says, "Oh, मेरे को plot के ऊपर problem है." Amitabh was like, "Don't worry, मैं जाता हूँ." गुंडे लोग को मारा and 3.5 मिनट के अंदर उसको possession मिल गया.
Okay.
Possession is not title. Title you have to devolve. You have to show your title.
Correct.
Now to show your title, the most ideal thing is from the basic formula that most courts and lawyers will follow is that you are supposed to devolve the title from the developer till how it is come to you. In certain cases where there was a redevelopment in the old building, so you will not really have you will not have lawyers or courts asking you, okay, how did it come up till over here? They will normally ask you, okay, who is the latest builder, who was the last builder, whether his sanctions and permissions were correct. So where the municipal perspective comes into play. Then secondly, what are the documents that you have created and you have come? How has this title devolved to you? That is even when the courts will appreciate your title.
Correct.
Saying that you are entitled to hold this property and you cannot be disturbed from this property.
Wow. Let me hold you on that. For, like you said, the courts, for example, what I remember, I'm given to what basically it's like a carrot and stick kind of a formula. So the government tells you, yes, if you pay stamp duty, you pay with comply with your obligation, and we will ensure then that a stamped document and a registered document holds value in court. So tomorrow, if there's any litigation or any such dispute, that's how. So you have both the stick and the carrot. So stick is a penalty in case you don't stamp the document, you don't pay your stamp duties to liabilities to the government, and the carrot is towards the incentive that yes, your document is valuable or it's valid in court only when it is duly stamped. Otherwise, it's a piece of paper. Am I right, Prakash?
Correct. So there is a certain obligation for the stamp perspective that you have to pay to the government. That is right. But that does not absolve you of your responsibility to have your document registered.
Absolutely.
Again and again, Supreme Court has said, please register your document. And all you have to do is go to the registrar, prove your chain of title and document. While currently you would see, often we say, the registrar is asking for too many documents. He's asking us to get this, he's asking us to get that. I tell my clients, please provide them all of these papers. If you are the buyer also. See what happens normally whenever a buyer is coming, buying a property for almost 95% of the people is normally a one-time purchase that they do in their lives, or at
one time in a lifetime, twice a lifetime, unless you're an investor like Sangeet.
Yeah, it does not happen more than that. So
yeah,
people at that time, while they're buying the property, they are very emotionally compromised. They want it. They want this deal to go through. Now, if there is a problem, I've had a very recent encounter in a particular case. The purchaser, he was so inclined in purchasing the property, he had his own set of emotions attached to it. So I told him, if you're not satisfied with me, I'll give you a reference of a very senior lawyer. Why don't you have a word with him? That senior lawyer, when he called him up, he said, this is the name of the builder, this is the name of the landowner, this is the name, all of these details are over here. Don't buy this, you're not going to be able to conclude the transaction in this property. Nor will this building go for redevelopment for XYZ reasons. My client refused to listen.
Yeah.
He was
we have
so
clients
inclined.
like that.
Exactly. So now this is one case I'm able to show because he was sitting in front of me. I was able to understand. I was able to interpret what were his feelings going on. But this is a problem amongst all people, and someone who does not have a proper trail, or being someone's worst nightmare. Those documents are not correct, or they are forged, or they have some other issue with it, or the title is not clear. Tomorrow, when there is an issue in the court, where are you going to go?
Right, right.
For
So
security, you will take an indemnity bond that this is the responsibility on this person, that he is supposed to, like, he absolves you of all liabilities or all of that. But will it allow you to A, hold and enjoy that property until you manage to sell it, and B, will you be able to sell it?
correct, correct.
So until all of these things, it is always better you have your due diligence, your title, your entire
Absolutely
background check done. अभी शादी से पहले आप कितनी इंक्वायरी करते हो, लड़का किधर का है,
Right.
लड़की किधर का है,
Correct, correct,
सिगरेट पीता है, नहीं
correct.
पीता है. So
Huh.
if you are getting, this is as big a decision as marriage in someone's life.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So Jabi,
So-
when you can do so much inquiry on that front, I feel when you're buying a property, you should do that equal amount of investigation.
Okay, absolutely. I agree with you on that totally. Another challenge or another thing with most of us, I'm sure realtors like me have this is, most of my clients, they have this, Pravinji, but why do we go to let's do one thing. I'm going to be taking a housing loan, and obviously the housing finance company will be doing some due diligence. So we need not do that. Now, what is your take on that? Is this the same as doing due diligence with a good lawyer, or is it sufficient to have that housing finance company doing that due diligence?
A bank will make you sign on a bank loan document. With all due respect to all banks and the legal teams in all banks, a bank is going to make you sign on a document saying, I am going to keep your house as lien. My money is secured. The security of the money is this house. Tomorrow, if I am not getting my money through this house, I will come to you for this money. That is the crux of all housing loan agreements.
Correct, correct.
So the part is, tomorrow if there is a problem, people have this understanding, myth, let me call it myth rather than understanding. कि अरे मैंने बैंक लोन लिया है तो I am able to, this is my due diligence done. कि if the title was not proper, why did the bank give the loan? No.
Correct.
The burden of verifying the title is on you. It is on the purchaser. The purchaser has to do the proper amount of investigation. And कि खाली बैंक को दे दिया, बैंक को ढूंढने वाला है. No, that is us trying to rest our guns on someone else's shoulder. That is not the best advice to follow. We have seen many cases in courts where the bank will totally absolve their liability on the title and the due diligence. They're going to say these are the documents produced by you. So this part, के bank अपना due diligence कर देगा, that is not enough. You have to, you're spending so much crores on your property in today's day.
Correct.
In earlier days, like, that is an amount of money you could earn in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. आज की तारीख में you're going in Bandra and Khar and buying a 3-bed and 4-bed. I doubt for any normal person it is that much of money. Even in one lifetime, it's going to be easy to make, at least further on in these pressing times at least. So it's very important for every person to be very particular and investigate where they're putting up the money.
Absolutely, absolutely. So going further, Prakash, let's understand now. Let's go into the process. Let's dive into it and let's understand. So, what are the different ways one can identify or confirm the ownership of a property? What are the ways that one can confirm? Be it the correct owners, or how do we have how can you help us throw some light on this?
See, I'll start from a process, since I am seeing there are many realtors attending this meeting, and we are specifically addressing to that particular aspect of the role of a realtor also in concluding and helping the buyer close the deal. Ultimately, a realtor is paid his fees after the deal is done. So I am going to take this liberty to put a little burden on the realtors right now, at least who are my clients who come to me. I always tell them, before you all start marketing your property, please find out what you are selling from your buyer. Only, normally you'll have a client who will say, okay, this is my flat, this is my property, or this is my office, and this is what I want to sell. In today's date, I know so many brokers, even someone you're an LLB, you're a totally different league, Pravinji. But
thank you.
I have seen realtors who are smart enough, who know कि ये building कभी बनी थी, ये साल में, or this problem had happened. I know this building does not have an OC. Till date today, when I want to find out about a certain building, so I being in the real estate field, I know, okay, suppose for example it was this building on 29th Road. I happened to call a realtor friend saying, I know this building does not have an OC. He said, yes, the society passed a resolution saying that we are going to try and get an OC. They did this in the year 2012. Can you get me that document? And I had that paper with me in 30 minutes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So realtor is the ground, absolutely ground information. So in fact, that's how we started our career, obviously so many years away. They have the ears to the ground. They have the information. They have the information which a lot of people do not have. That's one of the important aspects of a realtor, giving you the correct information. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
And this kind of information is something as such, you cannot really tabulate, or you cannot quantify this information, but it's like, maybe you were just someone who's lucky, who happens to know the right information at the right time. You manage to save your clients investment and money and and these roles. So it is always very important, not particularly even if you're not concluding a deal. I will today ask you what happened in this building 15 years back. You are going to remember. You very well remembered your first transaction also. You remember till date, you remember what was the documentation, what was the process involved in it. You remember the amounts, you remember everything.
Absolutely.
Rather, in today's date, one very funny thing I would say is I know so many realtors who receive phone calls from market valuers.
Yeah.
Sir, ये building में ये area में क्या rate चल रहा है? So they are court approved, they are authorized by government and all of this. But what is the source of information? Realtors. So again, their knowledge, their experience, their practical mode of handling work cannot is not questionable, and they are the source of information for many of us. So taking that also into consideration, कि अगर जहाँ पे realtor के ऊपर ये responsibility आ जाती है, at the same time where you have so much information, why not information with regard to documentation?
Absolutely.
You should know. You should always ask your client, do you have an agreement? Where is the share certificate? Do you have a loan on the property? What are the maintenance dues? Very these basic documentations, no? So when you're giving an inspection of a property, the buyer is coming, is asking you all of these questions. You are sure you have your information in your first round.
Absolutely.
And tomorrow, if there is a dispute, there's a problem, you can always have a lawyer come and investigate and appoint, and you can do your verification further than that. So basically, coming back to where what your question was, not only with regard to agreement for sale, but your share certificate, if it's a society or if it's a condominium, the certificate for the same, and maintenance bill. There is another option available online that is called the search size search. The search size search allows you to check whether there is any loan or any lien created on the property. It costs 15 rupees, 15 rupees 90 paisa, something like that. You get a basic idea, okay, whether there is a loan or something on this property. So it helps you pitch the property better to your client. You're going to have a better set of, your client is going to feel happy that you're more well informed, you're aware of the product that you're selling. And the most important thing that I have seen in the area is the actual true carpet area or the sanction plan. Most people I have seen do not have the idea what is the actual sanctioned area, what is the plan. I have till date currently agreements being registered in 2020 on a RERA registered project where the builder has a different sanction plan and he has a different area that he is proposed to sign on to give on the agreement. The matter is sub judice, it is pending before the honorable authority. But the issue is this mischief is still not removed. It is still mandatory to have your municipal plans checked, what you're buying, what you're selling. These things need to be known. So depending on a very case-to-case basis, you are buying your rights to the land, you are buying your building, you are buying your membership to the society or to the condominium, whatever as the case may be. So all of these things, generally, they are very important. This is the basis. This is the basis on which we will decide what is our second set of investigation to be in a particular title on which we proceed, and as the case is, we handle that issue.
Yes. In fact, Prakash, this brings me to a very interesting case. I don't know if you must have recently, there was it was very much actively circulated in the our social media, there was a case where somebody had purchased a land, and it was a large, papers were drawn, large number of amount of payments were made, and then after some time, in fact, quite a few months or almost a year later, they realized that that was government-owned land, or it belonged to the government. So how do you exactly what do you how can you actually verify that, okay, make sure that you are dealing with the right person?
So what has happened, Praveen ji, खास करके specifically with so much dependence of us on technology, color xeroxes, people being able to age documents by placing them in the heat and in the sun. I have known of people who have said कि हाँ ये वाला आदमी अपने ये documents paper लेके छत पे सुखाता था, so that it became a little older. If it goes into forensic, they know how, like, they have the knowledge to manipulate that as well. So with the help of technology, creating a false document, rubber stamp banwana, is somebody who has planned to cheat someone at such a level. Again, it is this thing now being circulated on social media recently, but this thing has been going on since years. There are people who play with the emotions of the buyer, have them, like, they are mentally directed to believe in a particular manner कि this is secure, आपका deal हो जाएगा, सब कुछ है. Now, for example, I will place a registered document in front of you. It's an original. You will see the rubber stamps, you will be convinced. But normally what we would do, we would ensure whichever authority it is registered with, we will go and we will cross check if the document is the same.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
there is a certain document that has a particular number, wherein you have the IGR website where you can go and check. You can remove the index 2, that does not cost anything. The index 2 is a document which will give you a summary of under what article it was registered and the stamp duty was paid, how much stamp duty was paid, what is the value of the property, what is the address of the people who are parties to that transaction. It'll give you a basic one page to give you an entire summary of what the document is. Something so simple you can have verified sitting in your house or in your office with the document that you have in your hand. If now what in that particular case would have happened is, I'm assuming this again, though I don't, that matter is under investigation, but the general modus operandi that is followed in such documents is, these people have those sub-registrar stamps. They have your government of Maharashtra and all these seals and boxes and documents. Everything is there with them. They will prepare that. They will tempt someone कि हम लोग आपको रुपए की चीज 60 पैसे में दे देंगे. And getting excited, like, I have the funds, I will do this. But they will tell you one thing, sir, we want the payment in 30 days, or we want an X amount of cash, without which we will not proceed, or you can get this deal only in this particular amount of time. So seeing and calculating that profit in their mind, people get emotionally compromised, they will fall for it. We cannot rule out that after demonetization also cash has gone out of the market. Cash is very well over here. And I feel with the current, the reduced stamp duty is an attraction to everyone. But still, with the current GST and taxes slabs that is there, cash is here to stay. However unfortunate it is, cash is here to stay. So people end up, people end up giving cash initially, and then these kind of problems happen. Documents are not verified. Basically, whatever the source of the document was, whether it was a register or whether it was a Satbara, you have to go and verify it from the authority that has issued the document.
Okay. So now, since you mentioned about the documents to be verified, now what if the documents are pledged? What if the seller has taken a home loan? How do you verify the originals in that case?
If the documents are pledged, obviously you would need information from the seller with regard to the registration, like, with which bank it is. Whether banks normally give you a letter after they take your original documents, they'll give you a letter saying that this is the letter that I have, and these are the set of documents that I'm holding for this person.
Correct.
You have to make the seller contact the bank, have the documents inspected. You take your file number, you take your folder number, you can go into the bank, you can get that information from the bank. There is no harm. If there is somebody who is refusing to do that, I feel he is someone who is not confident of going ahead with the deal. If the seller wants a deal done, he has to allow you to do this.
Okay. In the meanwhile, I would like to inform all our viewers, if anybody has any questions regarding these, regarding due diligence, please feel free to put them in the QA section, question and answer section. Please put them in the Q&A. I and Prakash will try and answer the questions related to the due diligence part of it. Okay, Prakash, what my thing is, obviously the next part of it will be the society now. Once you've already finalized, you paid you've done a little bit of physical check, verification of the documents. Then how important is a society NOC for sale purchase of the flat? How important it is?
See, for transfer of the property, for registering the document, the society NOC is not mandatory. You don't need an NOC to go and register your document. However, if you have a bank loan required, in most cases, you're going to have the bank insist upon providing the NOC. So there are again alternatives to that also, if they are not registering, you get your agreement for sale registered, then you proceed. There are ways to structure that deal, but normally it is not society NOC for sale of a property is not required. However, as a purchaser for doing his due diligence to know facts that are not on paper, that are hidden or that would stand evident otherwise and are hidden from him, he would know. So it is always better for a purchaser to go and inquire from the society, or as you rightly said, due diligence in the 90s were what? Neighbor ki ghanti baja do. Best. And go and ask, what has happened over here, or how is this building? That is the earlier, those are the ground ways how you would try and get more information out of with regard to an for property.
Yes. So now, obviously, then also sometimes what happens is, it's like you correctly said, very correctly pointed out, society can play a very important role and it can be critical. But at the same time, sometimes societies misuse their powers. They do not cooperate, or there certain amount of lag is there. So how do you deal with that? Be it getting your NOC, be it getting any kind of in documentation transfers, whatever. How do you deal with that?
See, if the society is not giving you enough resistance, in any transaction, that means there is something wrong.
Okay.
Somebody has to create a nuisance. One of the three main persons in the committee, there has to be someone who will say, no, this is what you're supposed to do. Most of which is always contradictory to what Maharashtra Cooperative Societies Act and its rules prescribe them to do. So it is very well known for them to, most society secretaries, treasurers, chairmen, managing committee members to try and, set themselves in authority in a particular position to control a transaction. But I feel any realtor, any purchaser should not look at that as a problem. If you have your due diligence done right, if you have your documentation done right, if your society dues are paid, if you're following the process that is prescribed by the law, you can always approach the deputy registrar with regarding to any relief that you're seeking from the society, and you will get that. It may take some more time, but it is always, see, the law is not made to drag your process or to slow you down or to say, why is this happening to me? Why do I have to go to court? Why do I have to approach the honorable authority? Why do I have to approach the registrar of societies? The answer to all of this is because you want to secure your interests and you want a proper trail for the sale. So it is always, if the society is not cooperating, rather, we have heard of many cases in many societies where they said, though the transfer fee prescribed by the law cannot exceed 25,000 rupees.
Exceed 25.
We still have cases where people come and say, courts have ruled very clearly. This is what the law says. You are not going to exceed this. No court has made their own additional law saying, "ठीक है, आपने ये भरा है, but you can force someone to make a donation." No. 25,000 as a maximum. Not that you have to pay 25,000. It can be set for a lower amount also. Plus 500 rupees for your, there is a particular 500 and 100. There are two other requisites that you're supposed to pay. No society can charge you more than 25,600 rupees for your transfer. If they are charging you more, you can approach the registrar of societies and have it transferred. They don't take a very long amount of time. It is a matter of months. You will get relief from that.
Absolutely. That's great. That's great. Okay. Now the next, I want to discuss with you regarding the now technicalities in terms of the structure as a whole. Say, what about a lot of buildings in Mumbai do not have occupation certificate. Now, how do you take that? What are the implications of buying a property in a building which does not have an OC? Or is it okay to buy? Is it illegal to buy? Is it what? How do you deal with that?
See, the answer lies within your question itself. The section issued, the certificate issued under Section 270A, as we know it and call it occupation certificate, is a certificate that allows you to occupy the property. So if you do not have the certificate to occupy the apartment or the building from the sanction authority which has allowed the building to be constructed, how can you occupy the property? So inherently that is considered as illegal. Now, though you don't see those scenes over here, like, what had happened in, we had certain buildings that had collapsed, or they had manipulations or changes that were done to them. Some people have even willfully, they have known and they've removed pillars or they've altered the structures. You're not allowed to do all of these things primarily. Number two, what you would hear about structures that had come up in Mumbai, which we had heard some time ago, that the entire area is filled with illegal buildings. These buildings have come up overnight in a matter of weeks and months. Like you have 7-floor buildings that have been constructed in 3 to 4 months. And of course, the permissions were not taken, the procedures were not followed. And if an occupation certificate is your way of believing that whatever was prescribed by the state, the minimum guidelines to ensure that the construction is legal, the construction is done in a safe manner. So it's not only about your safety, but about there are various factors that are looked into before granting of an OC. So when you're going into an apartment with an apartment or an office or any kind of property which has an occupation certificate, you're buying your own peace. Now, problem number 2, 50% of the buildings in Mumbai don't have an occupation certificate. Now, since we don't have an occupation certificate, what to do? There are 2 kinds of buildings that don't have an occupation certificate. Number 1, that have done the construction. They have followed the procedure of law. They have made it as per the sanction plan, and there are few illegal alterations and changes that are done. These kind of buildings can be regularized, or these changes, if removed, you can obtain the occupation certificate. So again, for this is something you need to go and look into the municipal plan. The issuing authority, the OC issuing authority is going to ask you, like suppose if you've made changes, it is going to ask you to restore it to the sanction plan, only after which it will give you the OC. Rather, one very particular builder we had in Bandra, to my knowledge, he was the first developer whose OC was revoked. He had the OC, then the OC was revoked because there was so many violations in the building. So it's not an ultimate right that, okay, maine OC le liya, we've got the OC, uske baad builder will make whatever changes to be done. I've gotten the apartment, I have my registered agreement, I am sitting inside, nobody can do anything. No, it does not work that way. You have to stay compliant to the sanctioned municipal plan. That, like, after getting the OC, also you're supposed to follow those details. Now, in other kind of buildings, you have buildings which are created without any CC. They we had heard about, now since it's in the media, I'll take the name, like about Campa Cola compound. The Campa Cola compound buildings that were there, they had permissions only till a certain level, till a certain floor. They did not have permission to construct beyond that. Now, unfortunately, nobody looks into the part where under whose watch were those buildings made. But the people who had purchased over there was a frenzy at that time. I remember that time very well. There was a frenzy where those people were running around looking for alternate apartments, because people who have been staying in these houses for so many years, where will they go? So again, not to end up into such a situation, you are supposed to look into your municipal plan also. You are supposed to have an OC to occupy an apartment. the most important misuse term is when the builder gives you builder, whenever he's handing over property to you, he's supposed to give you a possession letter. Normally we ask, give me a possession letter, but the builder very smartly will give you something called a fit out possession letter. Law does not recognize a fit out possession letter. You can only give possession if you are entitled, you're authorized by the sanctioning authority to give possession letter. So this fit out possession is not possession. With an occupation certificate, you are supposed to, you could say, I have to choose my words very carefully when I'm talking about illegal possession. You have to be very careful that the person who is issuing you the authority to possess a property, he has the authority to give you that letter as well.
Obviously. Like you said correctly, how title gets devolved, even the authority is devolved over, obviously.
Correct.
Yeah.
The responsibility continues for following staying within the bounds of the plan.
Okay, we're getting a lot of questions, but can I request all the participants or the viewers to please put the questions in the Q&A section? It's much, it'll be easier for me because it gets lost in the chat otherwise. So please put your questions and we will take it up a little later after we complete this. Okay, now let's, this is the broadly about the due diligence. Now let's come to the documentation aspect. So now if you could give us some amount of, very briefly, guidance on what kind of documentation is required, what is a sale deed, how do you go about that? So what is the right process of going into this whole documentation? How does one go about it? What are the important clauses? Anything that you can help us with?
So first of all, I'll put light on what documents are required whenever you are starting to investigate the title of a particular property. Is what are the chain of agreements that are there from the builder, as I mentioned earlier. What are the chain of documents that are available from the developer? Number two, the share certificate. The share certificate has an option on the back, from the first person to whom the share certificate was allotted to the transfers that are done. Now those transfers that are done also, they have a number in the side which says, okay, it is made in this register and it is in this folio number. And you can, anyone who wants to inquire, as I said, whoever is issuing any document, you have to verify it from the person who has authorized that document. So your first set of documents being your agreement for sale or sale deed, the difference will come to that, your share certificate and your sanctioned plan. Along these are to understand, these three items are required to understand your title. To understand your possession, you will ask for the electric bill. You will ask for the society bill to understand whether there are any pending dues or anything like that. And newly, though it is not not many people are making it a part of requiring this document for understanding what the liabilities are. But the registrar has recently started asking you for the property tax bill of the society to see whether it is paid or not. Normally, these societies are marked who have an outstanding property tax payable to the local body. So again, these services are also available online. It is very simple to find. And all of these documents can be found very easily online. So if you have these first set of papers that are available with you, so you are able to convince your buyer further. And for the buyer, he will have a reasonable understanding of what I am buying, where am I going. Now you have certain cases, you have a society made, or in certain matters, you would see it's a condominium. In certain matters, you would see that पिछले 20 साल से the builder is still managing the property. So, you have these various combinations and these very odd cases. In certain cases, the society's got deregistered. So, who's owning the land? Again, then you have to go and look into the property card. Is the society's name there on it or not? Or if not, is there a third party? Is the land owned by the society, or it is, as you would see in many cases in towards Andheri side, towards Sayan and Chimbu side also, you'd see the land belongs to the collector. So for getting all of these transfers, you have to take permission of the landowner. So getting a total understanding of what you're selling and how to go further on, you'll need all of these things first.
Awesome. Okay. So next, like I said, we can maybe go on to the next part. Now let's this was for a one-to-one transaction with Now let's talk about a transaction with a builder or developer. Now, if you could give us some, you could throw some light on the developer part of it. If I had to purchase an apartment or from a developer, what is the kind of due diligence one does there, and how does one go about it? Considering that we have, the RERA which is enforced today, how effective is it, and what can be done there?
So RERA has been of great help to many, so especially to real estate agents, for the part where now they have the ability to understand the documentation of the developer, which normally, all you would be given is a brochure for sale or a floor
Correct.
plan, and you would be asked to get your parties. कि आप client को लेकर आइए, we will handle and we will do the rest.
Correct.
But the entire responsibility, apart from the moral responsibility now with the onset of RERA, there is a pecuniary liability on the real estate agent as well. In case there's a misrepresentation, or if there's any wrongdoing or fraud, it is always the authority will leave no chance, no time to bring in the real estate consult who may have represented. But the actual inherent problem over here is the real estate agent wasn't given sufficient information. In today's day and age, you have an option to access that information. RERA makes the developer upload the sanction plan. You have the IOD, you have the CC. You are supposed to, if it's a redevelopment society, so there is an option to, you have to bring the point. Sorry, if it's a redevelopment, you're actually supposed to upload the development agreement as well of how the developer has gained right to develop that particular society, and whether who owns the land. If there is a different landowner from the developer, he has to be made a co-promoter. So all of these things, prima facie, now the real estate agent is able to understand. You have this first set of information that is there on the site, but unfortunately, we still face the problem that there are many projects that are unregistered. We have taken complaints to the honorable authority to enable these people to register their project. We have got relief in certain orders for certain projects because the validity of the IOD and the CC has expired. We are not able to have them registered. But the part being that in today's date, you have the ability to get that information, that very valuable information. I feel every buyer, every intended buyer, though a realtor may feel that I am just being used to gain certain information, it is very important you have a full disclosure to the person whom you're selling a property to. A builder also, when he uploads a document, they say, okay, this is our standard allotment letter draft, this is our standard allotment letter, this is our standard agreement for sale. But by the time you go to execute, there is a difference in it. Your sanction plan, also your authorized plan, is supposed to be uploaded. You have all of this information over there. Now, in certain cases, it is outdated or it is changed and it is not uploaded on the authority. But again, you are supposed to be very careful. You're supposed to understand what you're buying. As we discussed, there are these details that you need to find out whether he has permission to sell or not to sell, whether your particular agreement, we'll address the agreement part after this, okay, whether an agreement, in what cases, what is going to happen to you. Most cases I have seen, builder says, okay, if I cancel the project, if I'm not able to deliver to you, I will pay you 9% interest. But if your payment is not on time, I'm going to charge you 21% interest. So again, this is not RERA does not appreciate this, and there have been cases, there have been matters where RERA has said, okay, if you are charging the buyer also 21%, so tomorrow if you are defaulting, you also pay 21%.
Fair enough.
So RERA has come out as a savior. I've heard many developers tell me कि यार पहले demonetization हो गया, फिर RERA हो गया, फिर ये हो गया. Now these problems have happened. So यार market is bad because of that. Answer is no. Market is bad, or there are these. You have a problem in selling your inventory because your inventory is not compliant to the law.
Correct.
The things that RERA is making you do is only to provide transparency. It has rather fine-tuned and fine-lined the earlier obligations that the builder had, the things that he was obligated to do under MOFA. He was supposed to do all of these things. RERA is now only a body which is holding a builder who is indulging in a wrong activity and ensuring him and directing him to do it.
Absolutely. Correct. I appeal to all my realtor brothers and friends, we should, all of us, get more and more conversant with the RERA side, get used to it. I remember, trust me, RERA is a boom to realtors, and it's really been a great help. I remember the old days when, like Prakash said, we were only given one plan and said, even if, we were to ask some papers, we would be very hesitant to that because the markets were different that time. It was all one way. They were, not, there was more demand than supply. Of things are different now these days, but we were hesitant to ask, do you have the permissions, do you have the IOD, do you have the CC? Now you have the same access to all these papers through RERA, and we should make the best of it. So requesting everybody to get conversant with using the RERA website. All the information is there, all the I think, please get that, make yourself do it, do this research before you go to any site. Okay. Then, okay. So let's go to the next part of it now. Tell me about, can you help us, Prakash, define carpet area? First of all, this is something which has very been critical for us. Well, how do you define carpet area?
So we'll break that into two parts. Let's call it before RERA and after RERA.
Correct. I was going to say that, define carpet area and then define RERA carpet area.
So before RERA, we had the normal term that was used was built-up area that you would see in the olden times. And built-up area is generally, like, as per the MMC Act, the BMC Act, you would see built-up area means the area taken from the four corners of your floor plate. That is your entire built-up area of the floor plate. Measurement of that is the actual term of built-up area. Now, how do you get to carpet area? Carpet area is when you go inside your house from the door jamb, including the area that is between the door jamb that is installed. So whatever space for the door jamb that is left, I think so. Normally, MCGM makes you leave around 3.5 feet and about 1.5 inch on both sides. So वो जो बीच में आपका 5 inches by 3 feet, 3 feet 3 inches is there. That is also a part of your carpet area for every door. From going from your tile to tile measurement of from inside the flat. That is what your old carpet was. And built up was when you measure the actual division of the entire floor plate that was there. Then, and this included, like, built up included your balcony area. Balcony areas were later on regularized. You're allowed to cover it. You're allowed to take it in. Then again, I cannot get into history and find out who did this, but then came up the indigenous idea of super built up area. Which, of course, super built up area, I heard at one point of time was built up is 20% more of carpet area. Then came super built up area, which was about 35% more than carpet area, because the developer felt that I am providing amenities. So my project is a super project, and I'm allowed to charge something called super built up area. So he will charge you for the extra construction cost that is gone in making the amenities or the podium or whatever additional features that he has added to his own project, for which he's anyways charging you a higher rate. So I never understood the reason why anyone would have to pay a higher measurement for that. If you're already paying a premium on the price factor, why would you have to pay a premium on the area factor? Okay, that was super built up. Then this new formula came in where super built up was calculated at your carpet area plus 60%. Reason unknown. Then महंगाई बढ़ गई, फिर आने लग गया usable area plus 60%. So somewhere within all of this point, I can't particularly blame any person or any community in terms of professionals. That where was this term coined and how did we come up with this concept where you are creating? So basically, as I told you, we discussed yesterday about this particular project that was there in Car. So I remember when the building was being constructed, the bedroom I had visited was somewhere around about it was 11 feet wide and the width was only about 6 feet. I was like, why would someone do that? What is this room? So uske aage, this was a sanctioned bedroom. In front of the bedroom, there was this particular space called balcony. After the balcony, you had a flower bed. In front of your flower bed, you had elevation beam, or as you mentioned, it's there in the plan elevation feature. So ये सब area मिला के from that 6th foot till your 14 feet of the room, which is there in your sale plan. I use the word sale plan because it is not in the sanction plan. आपका 11 by 14 का room, this is how you made a plan, and you will not, because when you're saying कि, okay, I have gained possession, as possession you will say कि, okay, my bedroom is 11 feet by 14 feet, whereas on plan it is only 11 feet by 6 feet. So whenever anyone went, whenever any realtor went, whenever any buyer went also, they said kya hai? So builders were more like, you want to buy, you don't want to buy. I have the OC. So this is the part where you are made to believe what you're buying is 100% legal. Till date, you would see mostly these buildings that have been come up, I would say somewhere in the period of the early 2000s going up till before Subodh Kumar ji came up with the new plan, the new DCR that was there. You would find most of these buildings have these kind of extended areas, and people will say कि agreement पे 1100 फुट है मगर usable के अंदर 1500 फुट है. Where is this 450, 400 square feet? And then tomorrow you get up and say कि why MCG is sending me a notice under MRTP? Or why is there an illegal construction? Why am I facing action under MMC Act? Why do I have a 351 or 354A notice with me? And not everyone can go out in the media and start abusing the chief minister for that reason. No? So again, the burden of all of this shifts upon the purchaser, where it is important for him to ensure and know what he is buying. Yes, there are flats like this in the city. What is going to happen again is still in the process, but it is very important you know the ups and downs of what you are about to buy. And the more clarity the realtor is maintaining in this, he's like, if you're not able to conclude a transaction, at least you're building your own reputation by providing clarity.
Awesome. That's very.
So this was on the pre-RERA carpet area. Now, what RERA came in defining when the act was sanctioned, there was this particular circular of RERA that was there. This was like when the act was started. In June 2017 only they came up with this clarification for the circular, saying that carpet area very clearly means net usable floor area of an apartment, excluding. Now this is the key. It very clearly says excluding the area covered by the external walls, areas under service shafts, exclusive balcony or veranda area, and exclusive open terrace area. All of this is not a part of RERA carpet area. So when you have someone write and give that this is my RERA carpet area, rather this circular, it is available on the RERA website. People can access it. I will try and share the link over here if I can. It has the plans. It has demarcations made where it is very clearly showing that this is. I'll turn on my camera if I can maybe show.
Yep.
It has this demarcation which shows these are balcony. These are the points that this is not to be included as RERA carpet area.
Okay. Oh.
It is very clear. It is there on record. You don't need to hesitate or understand or question your developer that what you're doing is wrong, because tomorrow if you will do something that is wrong, the realtor is going to be held liable for it.
Absolutely.
So
awesome.
this is the difference in RERA, pre-RERA and post-RERA carpet. I hope and I humbly request to all developers or people who are able to convince the developers, whatsoever it is, if you want more money, you charge more on the rate, but be very clear about what you're writing and giving to your buyer. What's the harm? If you know that the person is convinced he is going to pay you an X amount for this particular property, Why do you want to write something else? Why do you want this matter to drag into courts? Just be clear.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Awesome. That's really nice. I think we have already crossed more than an hour. Time is limited. So what I would request is let's now go to some of the questions asked by. We have a lot of questions by the you know all the here panelists. So the first question is I want to know is can you what is the current TDS? Can you help me with that, Prakash? What is the current TDS which is applicable for sale of property?
See, currently TDS on the sale of property has come under the new instructions of the central government is to be on 23 particular items that include sale of property. What earlier we should deduct like for in regular cases at 1% and in NRA is going up till to 22 and 23%. That entire charge has been reduced by 25% to ensure to facilitate more cash flow. So in a normal case where you would be deducting TDS at 1%, you'd have to deduct it at 0.75% for this financial year up till 31st of March.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's super. So after March, it goes back to the 5%. Goes
Up
back
to
to the.
1%.
Okay. 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 All right. And if you can, there's another question by Mr. Gyaneshwar Thamkume. He's asking basically if power of attorney can be given to a blood relation for sale of property, or is it rather, his question is it valid if given not to a blood relation? For sale of property, what is the correct modus operandi?
So whenever a power of attorney is given to someone who is not blood relation, normally it is given to that person only to go and admit the document.
Correct. Okay.
Not to go and execute it on his behalf. It is only to admit the document, so that it has been signed. Like you have the photograph of the person who is the actual seller or the buyer who is there, but only somebody else on his behalf is coming to admit the document. So yes,
Absolutely.
there is a way that can be worked around with.
So basically, you're trying to say even the document is signed by the owner himself, by the seller himself, and only the execution of the only the registration part, the admit execution, is being done by the power of attorney holder.
By the power of attorney holder.
Correct. 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 Okay. Another question here, Jayesh Gandhi. If seller has taken loan, for example, 80 lakhs, and buyer of property given is going to take another loan from another bank of 50 lakhs, and the property total amount is rupees 1.10 crore full check, how to repay seller's outstanding if you don't want to pay seller before he gets his documents in hand? Bank loan of 50 directly paid to seller's bank is okay, but buyer don't want to pay balance amount to him personally directly before his documents get free. How to solve this issue?
I'll just go through it. If a seller has taken a loan for 80 lakhs,
and buyer of property going to take another loan of 50 lakhs.
Another bank of 50 lakh rupees, and property total amount is 1.10 crores full check. How to repay the seller's outstanding if you don't want to pay the seller before he gets his own documents in hand? So normally in such cases, you have the bank making a direct payment to the existing bank with whom the lien is held. Now, in this particular case, 80 lakh, the seller has already taken a loan of 80 lakh rupees, and the buyer wants to take a loan of 50 lakh rupees. So once the agreement, your bank is going to disburse their amount only after the agreement is registered and they have their to mark their lien on the property. So when your bank is the buyer's bank is disbursing their amount of loan of 50 lakh rupees, along with which you part with another 30 lakh rupees to ensure the 80 lakhs to the existing bank is paid. The lien over the property is released from the existing bank and made upon the new bank. And while doing this entire transaction, you can pay a very small token to the owner, to the seller, and keep yourself safe throughout this entire process. Because there are again been many cases where don't be shocked that a buyer has more than one loan on a certain property, and आपको पता चला आप 1.10 crores में property खरीद रहे हैं, and there are loans of almost 2 crores on it. So be very careful. Complete your search, do your due diligence, and after that
That's the mantra. Do your due diligence. Okay, okay. Then the question by Dinesh Budrani. He says, "How to buy if not in India? Can we do registration online because no for international flights?" I believe there was the government was going to initiate online registration even for outright purchase sale. Anything on that, Prakash? Can you help us with our?
See, I believe that entire program is still under development, and
Okay.
we still are part of a society, or of we are following a legal system of procedure where unless and until we see original documents in hand, we don't really believe it, and that thing, like,
Hmm.
we are able to accept and devolve that as a title.
Hmm.
So with regard to an online registration for sale, I believe the entire process was being set up for new properties for developers. But for
Hmm.
resale, I don't think that option is still available. And that plan still, I believe it's in the developing phase.
Absolutely. I think one of the webinars we attended, say they are already trying to, I'm sure it's a huge step that they need to do, and a lot of back work will be required for this. So it's not yet initiated. Hopefully it should be done soon. And I think that will be a great relief for all of us. Another question
Yeah.
here is, it's an anonymous. What if I want to sell a flat in my possession for 30 years, but can't locate property papers or lost? So what does one do if the original papers are not available with him? Does he can he still go through the process of selling? How much? What kind of process is required for that?
See, so there is a provision of law which says that you are entitled to adverse possession. You can
Hmm.
gain certain amounts of title as a possessor if you have an undisputed, if you have a property in your undisputed possession for more than 12 years if it is a private property, and more than 30 years if it is a government property. Now you say, okay, what if I
Okay.
want to sell a flat in my possession for 30 years but can't locate, property papers are lost? So the good thing is about
Hmm.
having a document registered is that you can obtain certified copies from the registrar's office. Documents as old as
Correct.
1985 also are available from the registrar's office in today's date. So if you have a
Hmm.
basic idea, if not, normally societies keep copies of the first sale, first transactions that are there. So again,
Hmm.
if there is this question by this what our anonymous friend has over here, okay, I want to sell, but my question is, who wants to buy?
Hmm.
If you don't have any documentation, who will buy? So
Hmm.
you cannot
Hmm.
now, possession is can be looked at in a positive manner. Possession can be looked in a negative manner also. It can be acquired in a malicious manner, and then you're enjoying the property. Whatsoever, again,
Hmm.
if you're able to, I'm assuming that the owner of the property and the person in possession is the same person. Based on
Same
that,
person. Yeah. Yeah.
some proof, like suppose for example, in many cases people come to us, okay, I only have a share certificate, nothing else is there.
Hmm. Correct.
So again, like how were you? And in the 70s, in the mid 70s, you would see most people were only on a single letterhead handed over the property, saying that
Hmm.
uh, so and so and this person was given the property. He's purchased this for 1 lakh
Correct.
rupee, 10,000 rupees, and this
Yeah.
9 crore rupee flat is yours.
Allotment letters, as you call it.
So
Yeah.
we would find many such documents, but again, you can devolve this. There is an option to like what we normally, our regular practice is to put a public notice, is to obtain a flow of title from the society being the landowner in this particular case.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there are many ways by which you can be able to sell this property. The registrar will accept your documents, but I
Hmm.
would believe you would still need to have further proof and be able to substantiate your possession of 30 years. Only you claiming possession of 30 years is not enough. You being able to substantiate on paper through various documents needs to be established, and I'm sure you
Hmm.
would definitely find a buyer.
Okay. Okay. Our friend again, Dinesh Putrani, has another question. Can the power of attorney be given to to your lawyer? Instead of a seller developer. So how does that work? And is
So
it
power
possible?
of attorney.
I think what he's trying to understand is it a conflict of interest? Can we have?
So power of attorney being given to a lawyer, at least for
Hello?
in case you're filing a case in the court, you cannot give, a lawyer cannot represent a client. Is totally
Is
different.
different.
Now,
Yeah.
power of attorney you give it to your lawyer.
Yeah.
So he will take it not in
Correct.
a legal capacity, in a personal capacity. He can take it. as a friend, or as an, he will fall under the category of non-blood relative.
Okay.
On those grounds, you could give it to him. But again, depending on what particular specifics it is for. Now, for example, it is leave-in license. For leave-in license, many people authorize their lawyers. They have their other friends who are not blood relatives, and they come and execute the documents on their behalf. So, depending on what purpose it is for.
So, okay, the next question I have is Rajesh Makhija. Any light on applications of stamp duty amnesty scheme which ended on December 2019, as registrar hasn't responded to some who have applied prior to the end date? Yes, this is common. I mean, I have a lot of people who have applied on the amnesty scheme which ended on December 2019, but they haven't heard from the registrar. How does one go about it? What is the process that they should do? What is the next step that they should do to ensure they complete that process?
I think it is going to be very difficult to answer a question which categorically says that I have made an application to a government department and agar usne kuch nahi kiya, to what should I do? So there is no particular answer to that apart from the fact that you follow up at the office. The application for adjudicating on the stamp value on a particular property as per the rules is 30 days. But obviously, with the reason of COVID, there is no time binding on anyone. Rather, this is something you and me discussed yesterday in a personal matter that you also had.
Yes.
And for the answer to this is follow up with the department.
Follow up with the department. I think maybe you need to go personally, understand, follow up with them, try to, you have to, I think very important, one of the basic things in, is to keep a trail, a paper trail, follow up with them, send an application. That will at least ensure you that you did your necessary follow up and you didn't respond, the department didn't respond, and hence you have a valid reason for not, the process not being completed.
The stamp, they are also currently very overburdened. They are also facing the problem of COVID. They also have issues like staff is falling sick. They are not able to come. They are not able to give answers. We are facing several problems with, rather, if you would go around, look into your police stations also. We would see the police officers of our area. Police stations are working with very less capacity. Many of them have been falling ill. They have been put across on the front to face all of these actions. Rather, we should have a little sympathetic approach towards the government officers in today's state. They have faced a lot. They have, by instruction and order, been required to operate. So I think so. Thoda sa that little delay they are allowed. They have stood by us in this very difficult time. And thoda sa follow up karke, I believe you'll be able to get your document, or you'll be able to get a status. Best option, as you said, is try and create a paper trail, submit a written document saying, I want to know the status of so and so and so. Get an acknowledgement of you submitting that document and keep it with you.
Absolutely.
It adds on to the.
Another interesting question. Another interesting question, and that's really, is what's the difference between a cooperative society and a condominium? It's something very, very, I understand that, but I think if you could help us with this.
So that is actually, it's a very vast topic. I'll just give you a very brief summary over it. So
yes.
A society is registered under Maharashtra Cooperative Societies Act and Rules 1960-61. Maharashtra Ownership of Flats Act is basically under which governs the condominium that is there. And that is by the Maharashtra Ownership of Flats Act 1970. This was started in 1970. And there was an amendment which was, I think so, less than 10-12 days ago, with regards to these condominiums. Earlier, whenever there was a dispute, they would be directed to the civil courts because there is no body to fast track or look at the dispute with regard to them. So this was the same case, I believe, in the 60s and 70s with societies also, particularly when you are trying to recover dues from a particular member under 101. So that is when we saw, again, I don't remember the exact dates or years, that these matters, the deputy registrar, like particularly for our H Ward West, what earlier was in Dadar, now they shifted to Bandra West. So they are empowered to take over these complaints. They adjudicate on these in a matter of weeks or months, And now in the same manner, these condominiums, as we call them, or Apartment Owners Act, they have the same authority to file for complaints before the deputy registrar, who were earlier empowered only for cooperative societies. Now they are empowered to entertain complaints from cooperative societies and apartment owners also. And the core difference between apartment owners and cooperative housing society is societies can normally you have an agreement which is like agreement for sale or a sale deed, and under apartment owners you have an apartment deed. Like there are two sets of agreements that are to be made because you are entitled to an equivalent share of the area in the land. Like in society, you have a totally separate body which owns a society. Over here, you have an apartment deed uh, by which, like a certain percentage, like of the area that you hold, that is part of the sanction plan.
Proportionate, yeah.
Land, correct. That's the main difference.
Awesome. All right. Okay, so we have a lot of questions. I don't think we can answer all of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to promise all of you guys with all your questions will be answered on either through email or we will. Sangeet, can we have some way to reach out to them, answer their questions? Because I have a lot of them and I'm sure we will not be.
Email ID right now. If you can take note of the email ID, I'll put it on the chat also. It's easydeals, EASYDELZ @shkventures.in. If you send us your queries, we will put it forward to Praveen and Prakash to answer the question. It would be a pleasure. I'm putting the email ID on the chat.
Yeah, that will be great. And so I think that kind of it's a very interesting discussion. We've had a nice chat, Prakash. Thank you so much for being part of this. And it really threw a lot of light on this whole process of due diligence and the importance of due diligence. And considering today, obviously, like we all discussed, it's once in a lifetime kind of an opportunity, or a couple of times in an opportunity that you move apartments, you buy property of that range, and you invest your lifetime earnings, and not only your lifetime earnings because you're buying a loan, you're buying a flat and you're taking a loan for next 20 years. So even your future earnings you're putting into it. So you better be sure about what you're buying. So in that context, due diligence is very, very critical. You need to be sure what you're getting into. It's not only about square footage. It's not only about what views and what you're buying, but also the ownership. That's what you're going to pass on to your your generation further. So great. Thank you so much, Prakash. Once again, really appreciate your insights on the in due diligence part of it. And really, I thank you, the entire audience, for being so proactive and being part of this. Thank you. And over and out from my side, Sangeet.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank Praveen. I think you have a role cut out now as a moderator and as a host. So I think this can become your part-time profession now, because very well, the questions which were answered by Prakash were very well drafted by you. So wonderful session, Prakash and Praveen. Thank you for giving in time and asking such lovely questions and making it so interactive. Thank you all the attendees.
Thank you.
Really, it was one of the best sessions we've had, and we look forward for continued interactions. Thank you very much, Praveen, and thank you, Prakash.
Thank you so much, Praveen ji. Thank you so much, Sangeet ji, to have me.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot.
And we will be uploading this recording on YouTube, which again will be circulating so that you can have the insights of what was shared by Prakash. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much.
Sangeet, can I also request you, Sangeet, in case if people have it, like you said, you put your email ID, but if anybody wants to get in touch with Prakash,
but I would directly, Praveen, why don't you give your mobile number also, because you're an expert yourself. Right. Prakash, can you give your email ID and your mobile number?
I'll just put it up on the chat.
Awesome. So we can put the mobile number and the email IDs on the chat, and please feel free to contact us for any such clarifications on real estate. I will do that.
It will become easier for everyone. You know what was the best part, Prakash and Praveen? It was very, very simple. Typically when lawyers speak, they use a lot of jargon which we don't understand. So this was very simple and very straightforward.
So this was a discussion that we've been actually having since the past few days, of having a more practical and an approach that would help the entire industry, the entire community, with brokers being so important in every transaction though undervalued, but being very important in terms of information, in terms of resource, even for us lawyers, as I had mentioned in one particular case that, like, when we want to obtain certain documents, we have help from brokers as well. It is very important that in these coming and pressing times also, everybody ups their game. There has to be, it is more fun for us lawyers to work with brokers who know what the lawyer wants and they're able to substantiate. We don't have to run around gathering evidence and getting all the documents in hand. So I believe making this easy for everyone else to understand and use and make the most out of it was the best part. And having speak to somebody like Praveen Ji rather, who was one of the uh, people who inspired me and he pushed me like, Arey, why are you worrying? LLB mein kya hai? Anybody can go and do it. So again, he was one of those people who motivated me to do it. I've had support from many friends, such as you also, Sangeet, who have helped me establish my own practice, who with whom I'm able to do so much, and like I'm able to sit where I'm sitting right now. So again,
Awesome.
I'm very thrilled to be on a platform with both of y'all, and I'm very
Yes, sir.
grateful for this opportunity. And at the same time, I'm humbled, and I would be like I'll be inclined to answer anybody's doubts or questions that anyone would have. I'm just sharing my email
I
ID.
just shared your number, Prakash, on the chat.
Yes, I'll put it on this thing.
And he's again, Prakash ने भी
Awesome.
share कर
Awesome.
दिया
Thank
है.
you
I
so
don't
much,
know if
guys. And let me reiterate. Yeah, let me reiterate. Do get your papers right.
Yeah.
Ensure you do your due diligence and invest. Thank you so
This
much.
might
Thanks a
call
lot.
for, or this will call for a session 2 also. So Prakash and Praveen, be ready for season
Thank
2
you.
of the season 1 we just completed now.
Surely.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Awesome.
dear.
Take care.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
God bless.